Welcome to Full Throttle Talk, the podcast where horsepower meets conversation. From supercars to classic legends, high revving tech to motorsport mayhem, we cover it all. Straight from the driver's seat, whether you're a gearhead or racer or just love the thrill of the open road, you're in the right place. Buckle up, hit the gas, and let's go full throttle into today's episode. Welcome back to Full Throttle Talk. This is episode 6, and we've got another fantastic show for all of you. I want to first start out by thanking all of you for giving us such great feedback and reviews over on iTunes and Stitcher and Spotify and all the other podcast listening widgets. And also, if you've not yet discovered our Instagram page, it's like a whole party onto itself. And so for those of you guys who have not yet discovered the Instagram page, Paul is putting up some absolutely hilarious videos of the different car events he goes to. Greg is putting up some great stuff. I'm struggling to keep up with all their amazing posting, but definitely go to Instagram and just all you got to just go to Instagram and just look for the logo, Full Throttle Talk. And also that's the best place to message us. And we want to start getting to, listener and viewer questions and such. You guys are given a huge advantage here because you're dealing with two folks. I'm not in the car business, but these guys are, and they're going to be able to give you all kinds of advice. And if you've been listening to the show for the last few episodes, you'll know damn well that they're going to give it to you straight. So if you got any questions, maybe you're thinking about buying something, investing in something, selling something, all the rest of it, definitely put it into Instagram and direct message us. And I promise you, we'll get back with you. And any suggestions for show ideas? If you want me to grow my beard back so that all three of us can look like garden gnomes, I'm all in. So, hey guys, welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome.
Yeah. So I know what Paul's most exciting thing was that he happened since the last week. But Greg, what's the most, because it was his open house, but we'll ask Greg first. So Greg, since our last show last week, what was the coolest, most amazing car related thing that happened to you or happened for you or with you?
I came across a really cool collection of cars and have to keep it private as always, but I'll give you a little taste. It was basically unrestored, low mileage stuff. And I don't mean like, a car that's 3 years old. I'm talking cars from like the 60s and up through the 90s. And Paul, there's Porsches there. There's BMWs there. There's one Ferrari there. There's an Impala, 62 Impala, 409, 435 horsepower convertible, unrestored with 7,000 miles, and the dealership bubble is still on the seats. It's just insane. I mean, there's a 68 Mustang. That was the very first car I ever drove. They bought it in 1972 and it has 1,300 miles and it's unrestored. There's a BMW 1988 M3, 1,300 miles unrestored. That's what his mom learned how to drive stick on. I mean, it's one after the other, after the other, after the other. And it's just such a joy and thrill to see stuff like that. Truly unbelievable. And on top of that, the guys, he had his grandfather's military uniform from World War II. He had his great grandfather's military hat from the Spanish-American War. And he had the Purple Heart for each of them in a display case. Just crazy.
That is amazing. That's such a wonderful story. I'm sorry, Paul, I have to ask more questions. I know he started out with saying, I can't tell you anything. And then he started giving us details. I don't know if you picked that up.
I can't tell you place, location, person.
So mental note, do not tell Greg any secrets. It's like, Tim just told me this amazing secret and I can't tell you, but so let's go ahead and talk about what he just told me. So mental note made. Well, so this is this sounds like a generational collection. This doesn't sound like one person put all this together. Is this something he inherited from his father or?
It is. So I can't say, but it is generational. So it is something that goes beyond one person. How's that?
Okay. Okay. Oh, I should say we're going to be improving our audio quality. Some people have commented on that, so we don't sound like we're talking in the bathroom anymore. We've ordered new mics and whatnot, so just be patient with us on that. Hopefully, in the next episode, we'll be right as far as the audio goes. Paul, you had an amazing week based on all your Instagram postings. So share with. Uh-oh, I think that's Greg.
What? He knows I'm going to talk about Porsches, so
yeah, exactly. He's trying to cut you off. So share with the listeners something that really amazing happened, and good luck picking because you had such an amazing past week.
It was overwhelming. I mean, this weekend called the Porsche Lit Show Swap Meet, for no better terms, has been going on in Southern California for 30 years. And it's best way to describe it is like a SEMA industry for everything Porsche, but average people can come in. So literally people come from all over the world. And it's been going on. I mean, this is way before Luft. I mean, this was probably the first big global gathering of Porsche people that, I mean, I've been doing this for close to 30 years. It was way before I started doing it. It was happening, and it's grown into a week-long thing. So for me, it's a way to just reconnect with people I literally only see once a year. And every single shop has open houses. But one of the coolest things, it was the beginning of our open house. The 912 guys always asked me to allow them to come in early. The 912 guys, I love them. They're the sweetest people, but they just have this giant chip on their shoulder and they just want, hey guys, don't forget about me. And they want attention, and they always ask each year, can we come in early and do a 912 display? Well, it's grown to, I think we had 3912s come in the first half hour. And although it wasn't a 912, a guy home built, and you probably saw it, it's on the Instagram post, this single cab Volkswagen Transporter, extended wheelbase. I can't imagine how crappy it drives, with an RSK Spider replica on the back, which I never really got a clear answer of how he got it up there.
He
The
said
best,
blocks. He said blocks.
there's no way. I'm picturing him going to the back of like a grocery store loading dock and driving it that way. I just can't imagine it. And he was sort of everywhere. Super nice guy. I have a feeling that RSK is always going to be living on the back of that single cab.
It's the,
Assuming it's,
go ahead.
no, I was assuming that's not a real RSK. They
It
actually
is
put on
not.
that thing.
And
Okay.
and people always ask me replica spiders and even replica speedsters. It's pretty usually they aren't, except for speedsters. It could be both ways. But sort of the telltale sign is if you look at the rear or any of the fenders, fiberglass is going to be thick, like half-inch thick. So if you look at that, you see a thick fiberglass right around the wheel well. Whereas if you look at a real 356, 550 Spider, whatever, it's pretty thin. It's aluminum or it's thin gauge metal. So that's kind of the telltale sign.
Well, since you brought it up, proportionally, the 550s that you see are that are, the fiberglass ones, you can always tell because the back, dog houses, my dad used to say the back fenders are wrong. And it was designed that way when, you're gonna have to remind me, I'm on cold medicine. Beck, thank you. Thank you. And he did that intentionally. He made it so that it was a little bit more livable, but a real 550 really drops off in the back fenders, but there was like a high cowl and a low cowl and all the differences. But so yeah, there are some differences. It's funny. Again, I'll try to not go on too much of a diatribe here, but there's some of the 356 replicas out there that I know normal Porsche guys will just instantly discount them. But Julie and I had an Inter Mechanica 356. You sold it for us, didn't you?
I love that car. Don't you
remember that?
I do. It had air conditioning.
Dude, that car was so freaking nice. Honestly.
It was.
And you made it, you said this or somebody else said this, the way you can tell it's not real is that the doors open and close correctly and it starts in the first turn.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I drove your car. Oh gosh, I probably put a couple 100 miles on it. And, having air conditioning in a 356 is just, it's a game changer. And the Inter Mechanica, I mean, they're as a replica, they're really expensive. They're six-figure cars. But it wasn't a speedster. It was a roadster or convertible
Yeah.
D, or
It was a convertible D. Yeah.
yeah. And which just, besides making it more livable, it looked more real because no one was doing that.
Right.
And yeah, that car was awesome.
There's one of those on Bring a Trailer right now. I think actually it's the same color. I think it's the ivory or the Porsche white. It's not ours. It's not our old one that you sold for us. But yeah, in any event. So let's talk about specifically upcoming auctions and car events and things like that, Greg, that you're looking forward to. What is more specifically, over the next, there's so many different events that are going on this year. It's really difficult to decipher and decide which ones you must attend. So if you could, and every one of these events has gotten really expensive, setting aside the travel and the airfare, if you're even flying out, the normal stuff. What are the must attend events? Greg, if you can go first. Oh, actually, if you don't got, I only have one must attend event, and that's Car Week. That's it. I'm good. I'm good with just Car Week, though there are a lot of amazing events that I missed otherwise, but Car Week's so exceptional because you could fit it all in effectively 1 week, and the people to cool car ratio there is just about perfect. But Greg, what are your top ones? And I'm not saying the ones you want to go to, Greg, not the ones you have to go to because you're repping somebody in an auction.
Yeah, no. So I've always wanted to go to Monterey, and I've only been the last 4 years in my life because that's always been my bucket list place. And it finally happened when I became a consultant with RM. And so just to do that, like you said, it is really amazing. I think it's just nuts, quails. I'm kind of over quail, I guess you would say. Not that I have a lot of experience, but the cost is so extreme. And like, for example, this last year, I went for an hour. That's all I could do, and I paid for that ticket, and it was just absolutely painful. It's become, kind of the new car showcase kind of place. So, definitely Car Week because there's so many little cars and coffees and all sorts of cool stuff happening. I will say, if I just judged at Cavallino, so that's the big Ferrari show in West Palm. That's pretty incredible. Again, really expensive. I mean, I think it's $500 a ticket or something crazy like that.
It
And
wasn't, but it wasn't in West Palm, just to be correct. Wasn't it in Palm Beach? It wasn't in West Palm. It was on the other side of the bridge. I mean,
yeah,
there's a difference.
it's at the Breakers.
Yeah. So it's in Palm Beach, right?
It's in Palm Beach. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not. But beyond that, like a big bucket list for me is Goodwood. I've never been to Goodwood. That's like a huge thing that I want to do. I've heard great things about Velocity in October out there in California. I'd love to do that. Just so many things. But I'm actually, as we talk tomorrow, I'm headed down to Coral Gables, Miami for the Sotheby's Moto Miami weekend. And boy, that's a show. I think that thing is incredible. I mean, last year was the first year. I mean, when you have a class of best in show Pebble Beach cars as their own class. Like, these aren't cars that won their class at Pebble Beach. These are cars that won Pebble Beach, and there's 8 of them in their own class. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And they had, like, I went to Amelia Island for years. I grew up in Jacksonville. I'm going to Amelia Island in 2 weeks. But Moto Miami, they have enough fairways. They have 3 fairways, and they have 1 fairway set up like a racing grid. And so last year it was high performance Fords. So you had, GT40 in the front, you had Cobras, you had GT350s. It was just unbelievable. And then you have, it's a 2-day concours. So there's fun events. You have the RM Sotheby's auction. And on Sunday, the auction cars move out and 100 supercars move in. And this year we have Ed Bolin and Shmi are like the MCs. And last year, I think we had 6 Paganis. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So, I do mention that one. That is RM Sotheby's, but man, it's just unbelievable, the stuff that's
And
going on there.
Julie and and Zoe are going to be there this weekend too. So we'll catch up with you, and I'll text you so you can get me a pass for the RM auction so I don't have to pay to get in.
I can do that. You know what? There's no free passes for the show because they have spent so much money on this show that not even the biggest clients get a free pass for the show. Now, I can handle the auction.
I'm the host of Full Throttle Talk along with you two gentlemen, and I get free passes wherever I go, and you're going to make it happen. That's our agreement.
There we go.
No, we're going to be there this weekend. And yeah, so actually I didn't realize it was this weekend, and we're going to be in Miami. So we're definitely going to go. Julie's right over there, and she just gave me the eye that she's scheduling it now. So thanks for that little tip off. That's great. So Paul, going forward though, so Greg, just to summarize, you mentioned Car Week and some of these other ones, you mentioned Cavallino. Is there anything else that really stands out in your mind? Like, if you're obviously local car events to folks that are listening or watching are things that you want to always, support. But is there anything else that really jumps out?
Yeah, I'm going to give you 3 quick ones real quick. The Hillsborough Concours, that's outside of San Francisco. That's, Paul knows, that's the oldest concours in the country. I did that a couple years ago, and that was really awesome. We did a countryside tour through the Redwoods, and I was thankfully enough put in the first car in a 66 Mustang convertible. We were the lead car. So that was really cool and a great event. Cincinnati Concours here in Cincinnati, the second oldest in the country. And that one is really, really nice. I do the countryside tour. So we'll do a fun tour through the wooded farmland and them in a cool collection or something. But the real big event for the Cincinnati Concours weekend is the hangar party. So now you got to go online. If you're going to go, get your tickets now because they open up March the 1st. And I think it's $150 a ticket, but it's incredible. It's like a Cincinnati social event. It's not, it's not even a car thing anymore. There's a ton of cool cars on the tarmac with jets and food and silent auction, everything you want. Really cool atmosphere. And they're going to sell out. Last year, they had someone offering $2,000 a ticket because it sold out so they could get in. So if you want to do something fun, and a lot of Concord cars will be there, do the hangar party and look me up because I'll definitely be there with some friends. And it is so much fun, such a great thing. And then the last thing is the Ferrari Club annual experience. I judge at that every year. This year is going to be in September in Charlotte. And I would mention that because the Concours is actually on Sunday. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you can watch the Ferraris race around the track. So it's not just a standalone, the cars never move. You can actually watch the cars on the track, and it's a ton of fun.
We better start talking about Porsches or Paul's going to cry. So, Paul,
There's a Porsche in the parking lot.
well, so Greg, just to underline something you said. So if you don't want to rationalize spending the money on the Quail ticket, the Quail event happens at the same time. What's that big Porsche Works reunion? Yeah. The Porsche Works reunion is happening the same day. And for the last 2 years, we haven't gone to Porsche Works because we were at the Quail. And, everything you said about the Quail's true. It's just essentially like a big hoi polloi. But Porsche Works reunion, I don't even think it costs anything to get in. That's pretty phenomenal in itself. And the collection of cars and people that bring them from all over the world is just phenomenal. Of course, Porsche people are always, with the exception of Paul, are always really exceptional. So, Paul, what car events are you thinking? Like, what are the must attend, cannot avoid, does not matter? You're just going because you love it.
So the events, I really want to go to, and I have bought tickets for some of them and had to return them because I couldn't. Goodwood Revival. That is sort of it has to happen. And when, I'm not sure. With who, I'm not sure, but it's got to happen soon. As you know me, I struggle to have the attention span to sit through a regular traditional Concours. And I think that's why they serve alcohol. I need to see action. So anything that's driving related, the fat ice race, I was so bummed I couldn't go to when they had it last year in Aspen, which I think was a trial run. It was very, very hush hush. I knew it was coming up from Jeff Swart, but there was no way I could go. It was such a small venue, they could not have the public really there. But they have it obviously at Zell MC, which is the Porsche family city they all live in up in the Austrian Alps. My dad and I are going there in June. Won't be the ice race. It'll be nice out, but I do want to go to the fat ice race. And the other thing that I have had friends go to, including Matt Farah, who I talked to at length, who's going to be on the show, was the Audrey Newport Concours. I really love Donald Osborne. I like his sort of ethos to car collecting. He's really trying so hard to get young people into it and not just say it, but do things that attract them. And so everyone I know who's gone to that Concours, I think it's kind of like how Monterey might have been 25 years ago, with the advantage of having the knowledge of here's the things you can do. Cars, like insane cars and coffee and driving events and all kinds of activities. But when we get a chance, I've been going to Monterey Car Week since 1998, almost every year. And my goal each year is two things. One, do something different, and two, spend no money, which are really hard to do. And I almost feel like I should come out with like a Fulmer's Monterey Car Week on $25 a day, because I've come really close. And I'm trying to figure out like how you can do it, because everyone goes, oh, it's too expensive. I have camped. I have done some crazy ass things just to get near it. And the irony is when you really look at between the cracks of Monterey Car Week, between the Quails and the Pebble Beach, there's some amazing stuff you can do that's free. And not only is it free, the people you meet, like I remember Dawn Patrol. Yes, you find someone at Haggerty, you can get in, get the hat. But if you stand at the door to Dawn Patrol, you kind of get Dawn Patrol free. And I will never forget watching Sterling Moss in I think it was the SLR, the early Mercedes SLR, and do a burnout on the runway as he came into for that, and freaked the hell out of all of the people who worked at Pebble Beach. And what are you gonna do? It's frickin' Sterling Moss. When we get a chance, I have legitimately got into quail when it was cheaper. And I have a great Alan DeCantonet story where, my whole goal when we first started going to quail when it first opened was one, get a car in there because then it was two for the price of one. And by the way, it was only like $350 a ticket then. And two, eat my ticket worth of food
And drink. Yeah.
and drink. So I felt like, and I remember I'm standing in line for oysters, and it's oysters and caviar, and I am just devouring as many oysters as I can. And I hear, if you're familiar with Alan DeCantonet and, if I could have only one Porsche, this would be it. I mean, his famous lines from his videos, I hear his voice and I turn around and he looks at me and he says something like, are you going to save some for the rest of us? And so I think I said, if I could have only one oyster, I would have all of these. I have a picture of me and Alan DeCantonet in line. I will post it on our Instagram page. But the thing
Ew.
about Car Week is just so many great stories, and it's just this euphoric feeling of car everything, and it is overwhelming. And ironically, the last 8 years, I leave Friday night before it starts. I come the week before. And that's kind of the trick. And I see 90% of everything.
Well, Car Week doesn't really start till Wednesday. And if you are there, like you just said, if you're there before everything gets set up, well, let's just drill down on this because it's really important. And I appreciate you guys being, more economically minded, because we do, obviously some of this stuff is ridiculous. Let's just be honest, as far as it costs to go. And to Paul's point, some of the coolest things are free. So you can go to the play, and you guys are gonna have to help me out here, but there's where they unload the cars for the auctions at the Pebble Beach, where all the carriers or all the, big, huge long haul carriers drop off cars. That is badass. If you can go there and you can just hang out on the street. Frankly, the security will let you drive in if you just drive past them and act like you know what the hell you're doing. I'm checking on my car. It's back there. The driver just called. Maybe you say that, maybe you don't. It's up to you. And you can go back there and park, and you can walk around. You can see all these cars that are going to be going to auction. Some of them are in Pebble Beach. But there's another thing that happens. Again, help me fill in the gaps, guys. But there's a drive that the cars that are going to be in Pebble. So first of all, get in Pebble Beach. I think it's $450 a ticket, which is, are you freaking kidding me? Okay. And
it's called the Rolling Tour. And it's
that
put
one,
on
talk
by,
about
it's,
that.
it's
Yeah.
put on by Haggerty. It's Thursday morning. It is still, I think, my favorite event. It's free.
That's my favorite.
You
Yeah.
get there at like 6:30 in the morning, the free parking. You basically are watching all the cars. So for Pebble Beach, um, I would say, I don't know what the statistics are, but a majority of the cars that are going to be on the lawn at Pebble Beach do this drive. And part of the reason is if there is a tie, if you did the drive, you automatically win. But what people don't realize is there's actually probably maybe 10 to 15% of cars that aren't on Pebble Beach lawn that are special invites, that are really cool cars. Like I remember seeing a 911, early 911 cabriolet prototype when they were deciding whether they were going to do a cabriolet on 911 police cars. You see people like Sterling Moss and Jackie Stewart. I have pictures with all of them, and they're just friendly. And it's morning coffee, it's free. And what we'll do is we'll watch them roll out, which is great. Watching these old cars try to start, some of them are a little over enthusiastic, some of them are getting pushed. And then after they leave, we kind of know the route and we'll go drive down the route. Half the time we get stuck in the procession because it's on public streets. So suddenly we're in a not expensive but old Porsche and we're waving along at all the people that they think we're in the thing. And then we'll stop.
Let me interject because I'll forget, because the cold medicine's making me remember about, no amount of time. You can drive into Pebble Beach and go on the 13-mile drive. If you go up to security and say you're going to the Gooding auction, or you're going to the whatever, you're going to the preview, and they'll let you right in. Otherwise, it's not much. It's like $5, but otherwise they're going to make you pay. And also, if you drive up to security, you can drive right through. And so there's another little hack for those of you guys who are wanting to go and only spend $25 a day.
Yeah, and for years we would go down on Highway 1. There's a section where we know they're going to get speed, which is really something to see these cars. I mean, seeing a 100-year-old car doing 50 miles an hour sounds slow, but it looks absolutely terrifying. And we'll sit there and we'll have Bloody Marys sitting in our lawn chairs on Highway 1 watching these cars just fly by. So, it's stuff like that. And what people don't realize, if you go up, I go up the Saturday before and I have a fun drive up. And then Sunday, I go to the pre-reunion, which they used to call it the prehistorics. It's basically everyone who's going to race the following weekend and also people who didn't get in because they can only have so many cars. And the key about that is there's no one there. There's literally no one there. And all of the mechanics, all of the car owners haven't been beat to death because they've been there a week with people hanging over. So literally, I'll walk by and they're anxious to talk to you, tell you about their car. You watch them start, you get to see them grid, you get to see them, and there is maybe 5% of the people there. And it's it feels like someone let you in backstage and no one knew about it. And you see cars doing kind of the stuff because they're not in the public eye yet. I mean, I watched Canepa doing donuts in a 935 at turn 11 just because he was out there. Processions of 959s, all kinds of stuff. And then Wednesday and is when most of the auction houses open for their preview, and very few people are there. And you rarely need to even have a ticket. They're just busy setting up and watching, some of these auction houses scramble to set up and move cars. I mean, the smell of burning clutches on Wednesday is indelible in my mind. It's and you just the excitement around it. And literally by the time I get to Friday, I've kind of done, and also Friday Works Reunion's great. Quail, if you could figure out a way to get in. I've seen some crazy stuff. But by the way, people forget the Quail parking lot has gotten so awesome that the Quail now has the Concord or the parking lot de Elegance, and they have an actual award for some of the top cars in the parking lot. So even if you can't afford, you just go there and hang out in the parking lot.
Let me give another Quail hack. So I'm not, Julie and I and our friends that we go with every year aren't the only ones that do this. But after you've gone, and we'll go in the morning, right? You go to the Quail, it gets super hot, and you can get the nastiest sunburn there. That's the reason everyone wears dumb hats. Yeah, so after you've gone, you have the entry is a rubber, band. And so you go there in the morning, and if you're going to try to go to Works Reunion, and what I see people do every year is there's always people hanging out, and you give your freaking pass away. You don't need to take that dumb thing home. You're going to, trash it anyway and give it to somebody who obviously doesn't have the money to get in, and just give it to them. Don't stick around for them to say thank you. Just walk up to them, look at the wrist, make sure they don't have one on. And Julie and I have done that. We've had such wonderful little experiences and families, a lot of fathers and sons and things like that. So maybe we shouldn't be saying that for the sake of the Quail, and don't do that in the eyesight of the security guys, but that's another little thing. You didn't mention, so Greg, as far as like different car events that folks might be interested in going to, that are going to be maybe things that people haven't really thought about or considered. I mean, we can talk about Monterey Car Week the entire podcast today. Is there anything else that comes to mind? You mentioned that one, Audrain, which is I've heard wonderful things about. Anything else?
Yeah, let me say two things real quick about Monterey. Another thing, it's over your $25, but at Seaside, I think it is, next to the Embassy Suites, you can pay $20 and tour Reggie Jackson's collection. And Reggie Jackson is usually there hanging out, and he's more than happy to tell you about his cars. So that was kind of cool. Kind of stumbled across that. And then my most memorable moment in a car, second most ever, is at Pebble Beach. When we were announcing the Ferrari 250 GTO sale at the auction, after it was announced, we were supposed to take it to Casa Ferrari for Sunday, and we had to do it early in the morning. And so the president of RM, Gord Duff, he jumps in a green on green 911, like 993. He's like, hey, follow me. And so I ride passenger seat in the 250 GTO with the son driving, who is an ex-race car driver, by the way. And as soon as we get in the car, Gord just takes off. He's like, oh, I guess we need to catch up to Gord. So we did that 17-mile drive at like 5:30 in the morning in a Ferrari GTO. And
you did the whole 17-mile. Hold on. You did the whole 17-mile yourself?
I was passenger.
Oh, passenger. Okay. But still, I didn't realize you went that long. I thought you were just in a parking lot. Wow. What a treat.
And then when we got to Casa Ferrari, like no one was there. Like, so we hung out, had some tea and stuff for about an hour and a half before they started showing up. So anyways, but Aldrain is great. I did Aldrain for the first time last year. I'd always heard great things about it. And a hack there is, if you're up in that area, go to the Newport Car Museum. Newport Car Museum is absolutely fantastic. It's a private, his name is Gunther Berman, super nice guy. He'll do cars and coffee, hoods open weekend and such. But that museum is unbelievable. It's his collection, but there'll be a room just full of Porsches, Paul, just everything you want Porsche wise. But he has a room full of, 1950s Finn cars. He has a room, one of the best Shelby collections I've seen, AC Cobra 427 comp car, along with, 65 GT350 R model, which is one of 37. But then he has the 2015 R model, one of 37 in there with it. And just an insane, awesome museum, Newport Car Museum. Check it out because Gunther's done an amazing job.
Greg, I truly cannot believe the depth and breadth of your intricate understanding of so many different cars. It is mind-boggling. I'm never going to try to keep up with your encyclopedia.
I just make it all up.
Yeah, but still, it's unbelievable. So that's impressive. So Paul, you didn't mention any of the Porsche events, the Louvs.
Yeah, and I did want to talk about those. Those are Lufgekalt. Like I said, I have minimal patience for car shows. That's why I like Cars and Coffee. It's an hour in, out, done. But Lufgekalt, I've gone every year, but the very first one, which I kicked myself because I was invited, and I was like, I'm not going to Venice Beach today. I mean, 20 minutes away, half hour away. But Pat Long and Jeff Swart, the thing about it is they have two events now. They have Luft Air Water, which is a annual show, same month in Costa Mesa, literally in our backyard. And that show is inclusive for every single Porsche, new, old, air-cooled, water-cooled, whatever. And that show, I think, is becoming kind of their trade show. They'll have vendors, things like that. And what's cool about it is as that show it keeps growing. Last year was the first year. It's going to be again this year in April. It's like anything else. A whole thing is growing outside of that show. Like the Sunday after the show, we're having a morning Cars and Coffee. There's drives on Friday up to the mountain. It's going to become another, center point for a whole week full of activities. But the traditional Lufgekalt, which is air cooled in sort of German, it's not always going to be in Southern California. They are having it in different parts around the country. And what's unique about it, especially coming from the eye of Jeff Swart, if you don't know who he is, look him up. Pikes Peak champion. Literally every cover of Road and Track in the 80s into the 90s was his. Every calendar was his photos. Most of the Porsche commercials in the 90s and 2000s are his commercials. Just a really cool guy with an amazing eye. And he curates the show and basically is trying to set up a show that if you want to take a picture, he has an idea of what picture you're going to take. So the venues are insane. This last year was at the back studios of Universal Studios, which sounds like no big deal. And I was talking to my friend who works there. He's like, you have no idea that they had to close all of the back tours, even though we were using a part of it because no one could come back there. And I don't know, did you go at all, Tim, to the
I have never been to any of them, and I am so massively jealous of your experience. Now I'm just taking it all in as you talk.
And we had a unique experience because one of my friends, Jay Ryan, who does the Good Vibes Breakfast Club, he worked in that industry. So I had a tour with him walking around telling me, okay, that's where Seinfeld was filmed. That's where Austin Powers was filmed. This is what happened here. And when you start looking at it, like, holy crap. I mean, where my car was parked was exactly where the DeLorean on Back to the Future, went back to present day by the clock tower they had to race and catch the lightning. And that's where my car was parked. So it's surreal. It's visually stunning and overwhelming. And all the Lufgekalts are just a visual, not just a lawn where they park cars, which is sometimes all you can do, but they focus and they're limited. I mean, they have probably 200 cars on display, like not a lot of cars, but they're all insanely special cars that match the background they're in. So, and the last one I mentioned really quick, Radwood, another great show. Very, very easy to get to. They have them all over the country. And what's fun about Radwood is it celebrates 80s and 90s cars, which I think, a lot of us, that's what we can relate to. And they are becoming the collector car for a lot of young people because they're attainable. Um, but it's called Radwood because they simulate Goodwood, which is people have to dress up in period. So you see everything from Olivia Newton-John, Let's Get Physical, to Megadeth, to I think I came once as John Travolta from Pulp Fiction.
Of course you did.
And my friends called me Plump Fiction, which is perfect. So
Plump Fiction. Love it.
Plump Fiction. I think I came as Spicoli from Fast Times. And actually, I drove one year my 928, which for the real nerds, Weird Science, I even found a replica plate that said Wyatt from Weird Science because they drove a 928 in a Mondial. But they have the music, they have the food, they have people dressed up. It's the first time I've gone to a concours that truly felt like a party. Like not let's whisper around this, 1927. Like it was a party. And yeah, and they have them all over the country. So they're usually in someone's backyard. They should all go.
I feel challenged to mention that just because the Pebble Beach is people getting all dressed up and they're wearing all their things, they're just costuming up to look the part too for the big show. Most of them are just normal folks that are just like, this is their big event. Julie and I are probably volunteering. A friend is in the midst of restoring a Jaguar C-Type, Jeremy McChesney, and he's supposedly going to have it in Pebble. He had a D-Type in there, not last year, but the year before. Maybe it was last year. Yeah. So anyway, we might be helping him in. And so what I'm trying to convey is that don't in your minds think that just because the cars are really, really expensive, that the people aren't the same people that are, in the, just showing off Miatas at the next car show. So don't allow yourself to be limited what your automotive experiences will be just because of the nature of the amount of money that people are spending. So Greg has his hand up. I think he wants to ask this question. Are you going to ask?
I thought versus just
go ahead. Oh, I was going to hope I was hoping we could end on your 3-question thing, if that's okay with you.
Sure. Yeah. Let me lower my hand.
Okay.
First off, so one last show, McCacken, Muscle Car and Corvette Nationals. There's no Ferraris there. There's no Porsches there. If they are, they're in the parking lot. The best muscle car show I've ever been to in my life. We showed my unrestored Pontiac GTO there this last year. Unbelievable. They have a whole section of strictly barn finds. So these things are dragged out, super rare cars, all rusty, all covered in dirt, but they're legit muscle cars and Corvettes that are historic and preserved and just one of the best parts. All right. So I'm resurrecting from my podcast, Keep Cash or Crush.
Now, so let me, okay, go ahead and do that now. I was going to do the well bought and well sold routine, but let's do yours now. The problem with yours is it's such a mind bender that it might wear us out. We might not have any energy left for the last bit, but let's just go ahead and do yours.
You sure? Okay.
By the way, I want to point something out. I don't know if you're listening, Paul. Did you listen? It was this unrestored GTO. And remember the last episode, he was thinking about trading it for a 996. Yeah, you're never going to sell that GTO, bro. Just don't even act like you are. Don't ever act that. It's not just a GTO. It's the unrestored GTO.
I know. I did have someone ask me about it, if I still had it the other day. All right. So, Paul, I don't know that you're familiar with, I know Tim is because he listened to the podcast and I haven't done it on mine in a long time, but Keep Cash or Crush. I'm going to give the two of you, 3 cars, and you have to pick one to keep forever, one to cash in, and unfortunately one to send to the crusher. So this is our very first one. I'm going to keep it fairly simple. I'm picking cars from the Moto Miami, the RM Sotheby's auction. I am starting with a Porsche. And so I am starting with, I don't know if you can see it here or not. This is from the catalog, a 1981. All right, Tim, look up. 1981 Porsche 928S. Now, coach work by Jambala. So it's got a wide body kit on it. Let's see. Where I-style modifications.
This was going to be easier than I thought.
Okay, you guys are going to crush that one. All right. Wine red Metallica for beige interior trim. All right, so that's going to be easy. All right.
Well, it depends what the other 2 are.
Okay,
all right. The next one is
sorry.
2000 Lotus Esprit V8. right there. All right. So that is the V8 version. Only 8 examples in Azure Blue Metallic, just 5,800 miles. And the last one is a 2002 Dodge Viper GTS Final Edition, 6,800 miles, Viper Red, Stone White Racing Stripes. All right. So I think I did make this one a little too easy. All right. So what are you going to keep, cash, and crush?
I'm going to go first. No way, Paul. No way. I'm going first. No
Okay,
way.
you go first.
All right. Crushes that poor 928. But I would say this. I would like to keep my here. I'd like to get that 928, and it's a fantasy. It's a dream. But I'd like to restore that back to original. So if I have to crush one, it'd be the 928. Sell the Viper. Keep the Lotus.
That's really tough because I daily drive that 928S. I have an 84 928S. I adore that car. There's no good reason why I should love that car so much, but like your Pontiac, Greg, it's just I love it. It's the wrong year, the wrong everything, and I freaking love it. Yes, you had me at 928S until the word Gambala came out of your mouth and I could feel the bile coming up my esophagus.
But isn't that the ultimate Radwood car? Right?
Well, no, you're right. I mean, that if it wasn't for Radwood, it would be definitely Crush. But the fact that it's almost ironic cool,
Right.
and the fact that the other two cars make it easier. Now, I can't cash it in because no one's going to fricking buy it. There's no value to that car.
Wait, we have a value to that car.
Oh, God.
Who are you dealing with here, son?
Of course we have a value.
125 to 175 value.
What? All right.
But it hasn't sold yet.
No. We'll update
Okay.
later.
All right, I'm dying to see. Okay, my prediction. Well, should I give you? Do you want my real prediction of what it? 60 grand.
How about doesn't sell? Go with the other prediction. That
Well, no, it bid to 60.
Yeah.
So
It's
Dodge
no reserve.
Viper.
It's going to sell.
Dodge Viper's gonna crush. I've sold half a dozen of them. I have a great story where we couldn't open the trunk. That's for another day, and it was going to Europe. But I love a nice interior, and I don't think anyone does a crappier interior than the Dodge Viper. I mean, it's a Tahoe is luxurious compared to a Dodge Viper interior. But I guess it's good because you're so far away from your passenger, like a Humvee, that whatever. But crush the Viper. I love the engine, love everything, but just I hate the Viper. The Lotus V8. I had a 95 S1 or whatever turbo, the last of the 4-cylinder. It was an awesome car. It was Nicolas Cage's mistress car. Another long story, but I love that car. But it's probably the only one that oh gosh.
I love how you're struggling. I love
it
how you're
is
struggling.
because I'm gonna keep the Gambala. I'm gonna cash the Lotus.
Oh,
I know.
What's your answer, Greg? Is that your answer?
I didn't even think that far ahead. I'm playing this too. Let's see here.
That was an unusual amount of emotion for a plastic up 928. I have to say.
I think I'm going to go with Paul on this one. Honestly, yeah, I'm aligned right with you, Paul.
You guys are right. It's perfectly fine. You guys are wrong. I mean,
Well, the 928 is the muscle car of the Porsche world. It is about as American as a Porsche gets.
Trust me, I'm loving 928s as much as the next Porsche guy. But when you start, sticking all that cladding on, that's just a bridge too far. Original 928, the slick sides, not even the GTS, just poof, just nothing from the 70s. I don't even understand how they came up with something so beautiful. The knobs, the switches, how everything works on the inside, all the little design elements that carry through. How was Porsche making cars that were that elegant and that magnificent in that era? It's just, even the 944 behind you that you got all cladded up to look like a cop car. I mean, those cars from that era are just magnificent. Yeah. So, yeah.
And when you drive a 928, it's remarkable that it's a 30, 40-year-old car.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
It really, I mean, the kryptonite of that car is just electronics, and it really is unfortunate.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Paul hit on something. I don't know if you caught this. There's something important. I'm going to make it a newsletter special. You said European muscle car, and there's a lot there. And I get tired of these concours shows where it's always the same classes. There's not a lot of imagination going on there. It gets stale, it gets boring, it gets old. They need to have a European muscle car class. I
Yeah,
think I
some
would be all
AMG
over that.
hammers, AMG hammers. Which, by the way, going quickly back to Monterey, if you haven't gone to the Concours de Lemons, it is a treat. They should serve alcohol early in the morning with that because it would add to it. The fact that you're stomping around goose crap all morning is sort of adds to the charm. It's in Seaside, but they have some of the best classes, like needlessly complicated Italian. I think they have the Gaul French class. I remember seeing the most perfect Pinto there with the license plates that said "Kaboom."
Awesome.
So
We can hold my last question off for the next. Unless have you guys
No,
prepared?
no,
for-
let's do it. I did the research.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to step on Greg's research. All right. So here's a new segment that we're going to experiment with. It's going to be, and you guys, here's the idea. What car have you seen? It doesn't have to be within the last week, but ideally, that's sold on an auction platform so folks can go check it out themselves. That was well sold. In other words, let's just say the seller did perhaps better than what the market would have normally paid. And then what do you see as being the best bought? So where the buyer got the better end of the bargain, hypothetically. We're not going to deal with auction fees. We're not going to deal with any of the other things get added on sometimes, just straight up based on the hammer price. Greg, you go first since you're prepared.
Okay. So I did some research, and Broad Arrow just had a sale in California like a week or so ago. And most of it was pre-war stuff, which is out of my wheelhouse. Like I can find some stuff in there I like, but there was a couple things that were well sold and were well bought. Let's see. The well sold, believe it or not, was a 1967 Volvo 1800S. Now I think those are beautiful cars. And it was red, which I don't think is a good color on that car. Maroon is a good color. So the estimate on this car was $35,000 to $45,000 and hammered double low estimate, $70,000. Like I'm having trouble wrapping my brain around that. And then I found two really good deals at that sale. One was a 1952 Jaguar XK120 fixed head coupe. Estimate was $80,000 to $110,000, sold for $62,500. That might speak a little bit to British cars are difficult, and like I would never fit in that car. And then the one that you guys might enjoy, it's not a Porsche, but 1992 Mercedes 500 SL. Now the estimate was 20 to 30 grand. It sold for $7,500.
Whoa.
And I thought that'd be a fun little cruiser. Now it didn't say mileage anywhere in the description, which is obviously a red flag. So it could have been higher mileage than what the estimate supported, but I thought $7,500 for a 500 SL Mercedes, that's a pretty good deal.
So was it a manual or automatic? Because that sounds super cheap, actually.
It was an automatic, blue and black exterior with beige interior. It was a cool car. So you can look it up on their website.
That was an R109, right? So that would have been, you said a late 70s, early 80s. So they've been an R109. So
no, this is a 92.
Oh, 92. So that's when they got super complicated all right. That perhaps makes more sense as to why, because those cars are a lot more expensive to repair. The R109s that essentially a classic 80s cars, those cars are ubiquitous, but I've seen some sell for over $100,000. I'm sure you guys have seen those too. But those are great cars. But that aside.
Yeah, the rule of thumb would always be the 86 to 89 SLs would be, if it has 10,000 miles, it's worth 100 grand. If it has 100,000 miles, it's worth 10 grand. Now, recently that scale has moved up. If you watch the YouTube video, George Conrad, he's my friend up in Huron, Ohio, who has 194 cars. He did 5 videos with Mustangs, Shelbys, and Fords. Just not on my channel, but just Google it. You'll find them. But in his collection, you can see it in the background. There's an 89 SL with 5,600 miles on it, and it's classic teal with tan interior. I'm like, well, that's a $150,000 car. So they're nuts.
Yeah, they are nuts because those cars were essentially flat money forever, up until maybe 5 years ago. Yeah, you could buy the world's nicest one for like 50 grand for a long time. Paul, you're up.
Okay, so well sold. Both are on Bring a Trailer. Big surprise. Both Porsches. The one
Big surprise.
have one that really tricked me. It was a few days ago.
Don't say the 911E. Don't say the blue 911E. That was mine.
I had that, but I won't say it. It was going back and forth between these two. But you're right. I'm dying to hear your take on that car because I had some interesting thoughts on it. But there was a 72 S Targa with a 3.2 liter twin plug engine. It sold for low 140s, which you go, ooh, it's a 72, a desirable year. Um, Actually, not the best year, but the general public thinks it's a desirable year. And Targa, not as much as a coupe, but it is an S. Well, the only thing unique about an S is the S engine, the MFI engine. And this had just a 3.2, and it said twin plug, but it wasn't an exotic motor. It's just they put a twin plug on it. It wasn't like they built it to a 3.4 or did something crazy. It's just a regular Carrera motor, Motronic with twin plug, whatever. Not anything exotic. You know, and condition wise, definitely a driver, maybe a three, maybe a three. And it's silver, black. And the problem with that car was literally the only reason to buy an S is to have a numbers matching engine. Otherwise, get something else. And to give you an idea, I mean, we sold recently two nice driver numbers matching S's, 69 and a 70, 69 and a 70, and they went in the 165 to 170 range. So, like after fees, you're talking about 20 grand more for a numbers matching coupe. So, whoever got that, the big thing, as we know, is that's what that hammered. Unlike a traditional auction where they already have your money, they don't with Bring a Trailer. And maybe that guy will wake up and that might be relisted again. So if that actually goes through, congratulations to that guy. Because if he came to me, I would have given him, I would have definitely called his baby ugly. The other one that was a good buy, first of all, in general, BMW 2002s. People complain it's too expensive to get in the vintage car market. If you look at BMW 2002s, they had a moment during pandemic and they are cheap. There was a sand beige 76 that went for under 10 grand. You can buy a lot of nice 2002s for in the 20 grand range. And these are cars that are great for events. They look cool. They're smog exempt, except the 76. But they're really cool cars. So in general, 2002 BMWs that are just driver condition are actually a good value. But there was recently on Bring a Trailer, a 2018 991.2 GT3 manual with a wing car, not a touring, and it sold for in the mid 160s range. And that car 3 years ago might have been over 200. Now, granted, it was a great color. It was I forgot the metallic blue color. It was ceramic brakes, carbon buckets. I mean, those are good color, great options. It had 20,000 miles, which cracks me up. The Porsche nerds will think that's too high on miles. And it had been tracked, but no over revs. It had a Carfax that said minor damage, which freaks people out. It was a scratch on the fender that they had to paint. And it's one of those things that drives me nuts about how buyers these days just see a tiny thumbnail of information and they make a huge decision. So
Paul, it's worth mentioning here that if you're going to get any work done in your car and you're going to get it, you should do whatever the hell it takes not to have it show up on Carfax. Because a lot of that Carfax, I shouldn't say a lot, but I had a 328 that had a bunch of Carfax stuff that was straight up wrong. I had the documentation to prove it, but you've got to basically take it to Carfax and have them remove it. And I was selling it at an Amica auction, so it didn't really matter. But just for what it's worth, if you're going to have work done, maybe make it so that they're not going to report it on Carfax. Otherwise, it's going to be a tainted car.
Yeah, and people, it's really confusing with Carfax. And I mean, we had a car that showed minor damage because he put a new windshield in. Now, people think it's coming out of the insurance companies. Now, they are adamant that it's not coming out of insurance companies. I don't know for sure. I believe an insurance company, but let's just say we do. I know for sure it's coming out of a police report. So before quickly calling the police with a minor incident, like in a parking lot, only do it if you feel there's a safety issue or someone's going to run. Otherwise, don't call the police on it for something really minor. And number two, when you take it to the repair shop, most of the Carfax is coming from the repair shop. So I always ask them when I'm going to go fix a car, like paint a bumper or something stupid, are you guys connected to Carfax? And when you sign that privacy thing when you're selling, basically turning your car in and they're going to fix it, you can ask for it to not be included in that. Now, the hard part is a lot of these are electronic. They may not be attached to Carfax, but in 10 years, Suddenly they become attached to Carfax and they data dumps, because we've sold cars. We had a 993 turbo that we sold in 17 clean Carfax, and then we sold it again in last year, and suddenly it showed up with two minor damages in 2007 and 8 when the guy found roof bumpers and had them painted and put on the car. And I fought with Carfax. I didn't have any documentation to necessarily prove that that was it. So yeah, Carfax is a good point. But anyway, well bought 991.2 GT3 wing car, and well sold that 72 S Targa with the 3.2 Abomination.
So on Bring a Trailer, we should just stick with Bring a Trailer because everyone can easily get access to their amazing database. And it is interesting you mentioned how Bring a Trailer works. When you win an auction, you win the right to buy the car and they connect you with the seller, but they're not actually transferring any of the money. Bring a Trailer's business model is freaking brilliant. That's for damn sure. I'll say
No liability. That's why it's so brilliant.
totally
Yeah.
no liability. They don't get caught in the middle. All they're doing is essentially it's like a car dating service is really the best way of thinking of it. All right. So as far as well sold, and Paul, I'm interested in your opinion on this. There was a black 73 911 RS Touring, and I believe it was not numbers matching, and it sold for 435,000 euros. I was watching that because I thought it would sell for more than that. Did you watch that black car? It was on BAT.
No, I did see it briefly. It went for what, 400 or something?
Right, 435,000 euros, but that's, euros to dollars right now, it's about the same. And that's
Correct.
the least expensive least expensive 73 RS I've seen sell in a long time, assuming it's real. I mean, even with not numbers matching, which I'm pretty sure this one was not numbers matching, that seems like still a pretty good buy overall. Again, I'm not following it like you are, but I do have alerts set up for those cars because I would like to get one, but that did seem like a good value, in my opinion.
Yes and no, a good value. I mean, when people ask me about a RS who have the money and they're starting what they think is an important collection, they have a couple issues. Number one, it's like a 911S. You don't buy an RS because you want the experience. It's unfortunate, but that's not the primary reason. They'll use it, maybe they'll have an event car, but the reason they're buying it is because they want a blue chip collectible. And so the problem with an RS like an S is you either buy the best one or just get a hot rod clone, depending on what you're focused on. Because even if you buy this one, let's just say fundamentally it's good, and fundamentally numbers matching is kind of a big deal, but not as much on RS because so many of those motors were trash. But so long as it has a real 911/83, which is the style of motor, and it's got the correct bits on it, most likely it's the least desirable Series 3. It looks like someone did the lightweight body kit in the day. Not a big deal. It can be changed out. If it's really black, not really desirable color. But let's just say you want to make this a great car. And you have the money to do it, which, by the way, let's just say $300,000 to restore that car properly. And the number of guys who you really want to restore that car are so few and far between. I know two of the three big guys, and they're not taking on any more new business for life. They're done. And so who are you going to entrust this with? And so a collector of one of these cars, and they made over 1,500 cars. They're not that rare. So you can, when we mentioned a few podcasts ago that I got to drive the 73 RS Touring in Chartreuse. That car, I don't know for sure because I wasn't too involved with it, but that's probably a 7-figure car. And you go, well, what's the difference? I mean, that car was insane. It's restored by the right people. A lot of originality left. When I look at this RS Touring, there's a lot of stuff. Just looking
It's
at
a
the
driver. I mean, honestly, Paul, I'm hearing everything you're saying, but it's even worse than you said. Not only is it not numbers matching, which, but it's also originally as maroon sepia. So that was the original color. So they did a favor of painting it black.
And by the way, just note for anyone selling a car, either remove or hide the harnesses, especially if they're not period correct. It's like taking pictures of your car on the track and you're selling on Bring a Trailer. It shows you at speed on the track. That doesn't help anyone.
So I have so any car that I can just pick out, there's a green 2019. This is answering well sold, but still, it doesn't surprise me. The green 2019 GT3 RS. Have you either of you guys driven one of those cars in like anger?
All of
Which
them.
year was it?
2000, it's a 991.2 GT3 RS.
I've driven one of those, not in anger. I've driven a 991.1 GT3 RS in anger up Angeles Crest, and I realized that is way too much car for the public roads.
So I had one of the best driving experiences of my life driving this exact car in the exact color and around Tail of the Dragon, all those roads. And if you guys ever go to Tail of the Dragon, it's a great, amazing, crazy ass road. But the fact is there's way too much traffic, way too many motorcycles. The roads around the Tail of the Dragon are way better, far fewer cars, less likely that you're going to run into, anybody physically. And, certainly the police don't monitor as well as I'm not suggesting you drive like a jackass. I'm just saying. I thought this car for 255,000, and these fascinate me because that's scratching at like, what can you get for 255 in the Porsche world? It just goes to show that the RSs are having this renaissance of values that they don't seem to have, showing any signs of weakness. I mean, here's a car, it doesn't have a lot of miles, but this car is now going on 6 years old for 255,000. It's still selling for what it sold for. I assume this is more than what it was sold for originally, manufacturer's suggested retail price. Yeah, so I would say that's well sold, but not surprisingly well sold.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean those cars, the RS cars, and we'll have to see where the future goes with these, considering how expensive they've gotten now that they've raised the prices. And if they start introducing tariffs and whatnot and raise the prices even more, we'll have to see what happens to that market. But most likely what's going to happen is people like you guys who are dealing with a lot of the, essentially used cars, those cars are going to have an increase in value,
Yep.
I would think. Yeah. So
A funny story about the GT3 RS. We sold one last year, and it was understated. GT silver, Weissach package with painted hood, which is really rare because everyone who has the Weissach package wants to show everyone I have a Weissach package and look at the carbon fiber hood. So someone was pretty discreet, no graphics, badge delete, painted hood. You could not tell it was, and it was a cool car. And when I started talking to my clients over a year ago about he was going to sell it, it had like 8,000 miles. And he says, well, my son's using it a little bit. He loves the car. He has an older son, probably about my age, maybe a little younger. And he goes, I'll get back to you. In 6 months, he gets back to me. Instead of being an $8,000 car, 8,000 mile car, it's 22,000 miles. His son used it as a daily driver. And we calculated he literally drove about $35,000 value out of that car.
well, such is the way. Good memories. Can't pay for that. I mean, I'm pretty sure my wife spent $35,000 on airfare for us to go to Italy last year. She never told me. My battery on my computer is actually dying. So let's wrap up the show here. So the topic of next week's show, or one of the things we're going to focus on, it'll be so funny because Paul's going to say his original GTO, and you're going to say Porsche 911. But the topic is defining the greatest sports cars ever. So let's push the envelope. And Greg, you had a great idea about talking about the, British sports cars. That'd be a fun topic too. But let's really push the envelope and let's, we're all going to go in our own directions. I think if people have been listening to us for a while, they know what our preferences are. But let's go and let's really jump deep into what our perceptions of the greatest sports cars ever. And let's talk about why, and not make it the most McLaren F1, obviously the go-to because it's $25 million. Let's just drill down on the things and why we feel like they're the greatest sports cars ever, in our own opinion. Not, Miata, because everyone could afford one. Well, but is it really is? Nah, that type of thing. So that's the challenge I have for you guys for next week. Sound good?
Sounds great.
In the meantime, if you have any show topic ideas, if you have any suggestions for us, if you have anything at all that you'd like to contribute, please do go to Full Throttle Talk over on Instagram and direct message us. We will get back with you guys right away. Thank you for continuing to listen. Thank you for pushing us up the rankings as far as iTunes and podcasts and downloads and whatnot. Do please share the show with other folks. We are putting obviously a lot of energy into this. We're enjoying it, and hopefully you're enjoying it as well. Have a fantastic day, and thank you for listening to this week's Full Throttle Talk.